Very simple, actually. It's family. I grew up here in the UK. My father is from Zimbabwe originally, and he set up a business in South Africa many years ago in the early 1970s. So I grew up with my father traveling the world, setting up distributors around the world. And when I left school and then I got my degree, I first worked in a variety of industries. Ironically, sports marketing has been one of my big passions. None of us really set out or intended on joining this sector when we either went to university or finished school or whatever. So most people seem to have stumbled into it. But once you're in, it seems to be pretty hard to leave. Having committed to net zero by 2030 or wherever it might be, going on, actually, we're not actually sure how we're going to get there by 2030. And I think they find it quite a breath of fresh air when they find a company such as ourselves, where we have a range of different options. We'll tangibly help them make some progress, and a number of them are really immediate progress. So that's an exciting place to be in our sector. Hydrocarbons are going nowhere, not for decades to come. They're too needed.
Today, Angus MacDonald, co-founder of A&S International, reveals how heavy industry operators are cutting emissions in downtime using one counterintuitive lubrication strategy most OEMs don't want you to know about. Stay until the end, where he shares the single obstacle blocking industrial companies from 40% growth in 2025. This is the Inevitable Cast, sponsored by Inevitable Flow.
Welcome to the Inevitable Cast. This podcast is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. We help architecture, engineering, and construction companies generate a consistent flow of qualified project leads using smart AI solutions. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, click the link in the description of the show. Today's guest is Angus MacDonald, co-founder and director of A&S International, a UK-based technical sales consultancy helping heavy industry, marine, and infrastructure operators reduce downtime, cut emissions, and improve reliability through eco-friendly lubrication, fuel conditioning, and bioremediation solutions. With over 2 decades in industrial lubrication and reliability engineering, Angus sits at a rare intersection of deep technical expertise and commercial execution, working through a global distributor network while supporting end clients across ports, shipyards, civil engineering, mining, and transportation. What makes this conversation especially interesting is how A&S navigates long sales cycles, conservative industries, sustainability pressure, and the challenge of scaling expertise-driven sales without losing trust or technical credibility. Angus, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Yi. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invite.
And before we get technical, let's start human. You spent over 20 years in this space. What originally pulled you into lubrication and reliability of all things?
Very simple, actually. It's family. I grew up here in the UK. My father is from Zimbabwe originally, and he set up a business in South Africa many years ago in the early 1970s. Him and a business partner came across a US lubricant manufacturer called Lubrication Engineers, which at that stage was just trading within the US, had no overseas business whatsoever. And my father and his partner, Paget Bellin, identified that there was great potential for these specialist industrial lubricants for the South African mining sector. So they started to import these lubricants into South Africa, had great success, so much success that they realized there was huge potential in many other countries. And so they set up a global division. So I grew up with my father traveling the world, setting up distributors around the world. And when I left school and then I got my degree, I first worked in a variety of industries. Ironically, sports marketing has been one of my big passions. I had my own company in London for several years. But it got to the stage where there was a fantastic opportunity to join my dad and help him grow the business. And I did that about 21 years ago. So having kind of grown up with it in the background and I was definitely ever going to join him, but suddenly the timing was right. I joined thinking I'll give it a go for 1 year. And here I am 21 years ago. A really interesting, really enjoyable ride. We're still a family business. My brother and I set up A&S International about 7 years ago. My dad's retired now. It was down to family. So I think it's weird within the lubricants industry. Nearly all my colleagues I know, none of us really set out or intended on joining this sector when we either went to university or finished school or whatever. So most people seem to have stumbled into it. But once you're in, it seems to be pretty hard to leave. Most people I work with have been in the industry 20, 30, 40 years.
That is super, super interesting. You're bringing the legacy forward. I'm very curious, Angus, today, where do you personally spend most of your time? Is it like technical support, like distributor relationships, or maybe business development?
It's a real mix, actually. For our business, a lot of it is to do with technical support, because we work as a master distributor. So we're representing 8 different brands, and we sit as master distributor. They have signed us up because they want access to our global network of distributors. And so we do a lot of the legwork for them in terms of training our teams, supporting them. And that could be regular daily technical queries. It could be helping on client calls. We still do a lot of traveling around the world, spending time, boots on the ground in the field, visiting customers with our distributors. But yeah, naturally, business development's a big part of that as well. And obviously marketing. We provide sales support, but we're also working very hard to support our distributors with marketing. And an interesting development for us really as a family business in the UK has been the development the last 3 or 4 years of more direct clients. So we're building up an impressive network of direct clients in sectors such as offshore oil and gas. I'm spending a lot of my time up in Aberdeen every year now with some of the big oil and gas players up there, gas transmission companies, ports, you name it. So yeah, it's a real moving feast, actually. No one day is the same as the other. So it's one of the reasons we love the business so much.
That's interesting. I would love to understand a little further how the business actually works, because A&S operates largely through like a global distributor model representing a few
Yeah,
brands. How
correct.
does that, structure work day to day? And I think most importantly, how do you balance like technical education, trust, and consistency across so many territories?
Yeah, great question. It can be challenging, but I think what we found, G, is that a good number of our distributors have been working with us for 20, 30, 40 years. There's a big element of trust and support there. They have good levels of technical knowledge, and even the new distributors who we find and appoint, we do so when we know that they have the technical expertise, they have the boots on the ground, the sales personnel who can be out in the field, who've got established client bases already, so that as and when we start working with them, I'm not saying it happens overnight, but they tend to have a fairly established network of clients who they can then tap into and introduce one or several of our brands into those businesses. So the way we've developed A&S over the last 7 years or so, and in terms of the product mix that we have, and they all have a good synergy together. So most of our distributors can buy all of them if they want, and most of their clients would be able to use nearly all of them, because the different brands can generally be used by any sort of heavy industry. So, and that's one of the reasons we've selected those brands, and it seems to work well. As I said, it varies. Some of our team are only working with us with 1 or 2 of the products. Others are 5 or 6. But again, there's quite an eclectic mix in terms of company size. Some of them are PLCs, some of them are small family businesses. So there's a real range, and then there's a range of expertise in terms of the types of industries each one of them works with. So, but as always, we're looking to expand our team. There's still a number of really significant markets out there where we are not, and where we'd love to find and appoint distributors who we think would be a good fit, and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, how do you currently find distributors? Do they mostly come to you, or do you have any like program that attracts them?
It's a bit of both, really. We try and be as proactive as we can in terms of searching. There's certain territories we're focused on, and we have in the past used search companies. LinkedIn's a very powerful tool for us, but then also referrals. Like any sales organization, referrals tend to be a really powerful way of connecting with new contacts. Certainly, with some of the brands, we're one of many different distributors around the world. So one example is the British brand Solnox, which is the brand of eco-fuel conditioners. Our 2 most recent distributors that we've signed are actually fellow distributors for another brand called Fluortech. So I've got to know those teams well through kind of regional sales meetings, got on well with them, and the more they understood about our business, they identified some of our products that they also wanted to add to their range. So that's been a nice way of developing the business, really.
One thing that I'm curious about as an environmental engineer myself and a regenerative farmer, I care deeply about sustainability and regeneration. And I often find that some sustainability driven conversations are hard to have with certain people or
Yeah.
niche. How is that going for you? Like, are sustainability driven conversations accelerating or still facing like resistance in your opinion?
I'd say they're accelerating. I had a similar conversation the other day, actually. It's definitely better than 5, 6, 7 years ago when we started the business. It was much more of a challenge, as I'm sure you have. I found that the acceleration in certain sustainability centered roles, whether it's head of ESG or sustainability directors or even head of carbon, head of energy, have really grown. And we've found that those individuals have almost become some of our most important decision makers, or certainly to have a foot in the door when we approach certain companies, because obviously their raison d'etre for being there is to decarbonize their organizations, to help progress towards net zero ambitions. So I've seen a lot of that, but in saying it, there's still very often those individuals aren't always able to pull the trigger on certain purchases. So they then refer us through to maybe the engineering department, the maintenance department. And then it's can be more hit and miss in terms of those conversations, because understandably, more often than not, those individuals are more focused on reliability of their plant, for example, with good reason, profitability for good reason. And then we tend to find sometimes that the sustainability part of the business maybe gets sidelined. Not always, but that's what can happen. But I've been really encouraged, certainly the last couple of years, just by how much more focus there is on sustainability and how many more of our clients are wanting to have those conversations with us, and they're wanting to identify new solutions, ideally solutions that are going to be more transitional, that don't require enormous amounts of capex, which, because as we know, unfortunately, a lot of these future fuels needs to be a huge investment. And more often than not, when we have these conversations, a lot of these clients are actually scratching their heads and having committed to net zero by 2030 or wherever it might be, going, well, actually, we're not actually sure how we're going to get there by 2030. And I think they find it quite a breath of fresh air when they find a company such as ourselves, where we have a range of different options, will tangibly help them make some progress. And a number of them are really immediate progress. So that's an exciting place to be.
Yeah, totally. I would think so. And as you know, heavy industries is traditionally conservative. And you kind of gave us like a glimpse of like how the process would work when you get to talk with the internal teams, and it can kind of
Yeah.
go like both ways. But if you were to, pinpoint, where adoption slows down the most today, what would you say?
It's often purchasing, unfortunately, because I find not always is everything joined up. So maybe we get sign off from sustainability or whatever. Maybe engineering say, yeah, we definitely want. And then sometimes, we get to purchasing. And again, it's life, it's business. Sometimes there isn't the budget, and purchasing will say, well, actually, that's maybe too high a price, or not always. But, if it is going to sometimes slow down or sometimes stop, it can be that.
Totally. And on that topic, like what metrics would you say matters the most to your clients when they finally say yes?
Yeah, they need the confidence that they know there's going to be tangible results. So for us, it's having powerful case studies, and it's being able to provide consistent return on investment figures so that they can really understand how cost effective it's going to be for them. Because most of the time, that's what it's going to come down to. They're not going to invest or try a new solution unless they really believe it's also going to save them money, as well as enable them to, as I say, decarbonize effectively.
And on that token, can you share an example where like a relatively small intervention delivered disproportionate results or, amazing results to your clients?
Yes, with pleasure. Brand we've worked and represented proudly for probably 5 years now is Fluitech. So they're a Dutch business, very niche. They're all about identifying and then dealing with varnish contamination within lubricants. Rotating equipment such as turbines, hydraulic systems, compressors have lubricants inside them. So turbine oils, compressor oils, that kind of thing. And over time, one of the main forms of contamination that can develop in these industrial fluids is a deposit known loosely as varnish, which is fundamentally where lubricants oxidize and they start to deposit out on the internals of the turbine or the compressor. And that can lead to all sorts of issues, from sticking valves to Elevated bearing temperatures was this sticky, tacky varnish will actually end up insulating bearings. So suddenly the temperature of the bearings, temperature of the turbine can increase. So there's a number of disadvantages. And the last year we had a lot of success here in the UK with a variety of sectors where, because of some of the ASTM tests Fluidtech have developed, clients are able to identify varnish contamination in their equipment by oil analysis. And a number of these tests, there's one called the MPC, one called Ruler, which is to do with antioxidants. So we're able to work with the customer and very quickly say, well, this is the problem you've got because we've identified it on oil analysis. And one example, a refinery here in the UK that was suffering from a lot of unplanned downtime due to elevated temperatures that were leading to the tripping of really critical pieces of equipment on a really regular occurrence. And very simply, we were able to propose a product called Decon. We don't call it an additive, but it's added into the lubricants at a 5% ratio. And in very simple terms, it solubilizes the varnish within that oil, ensures that it no longer deposits out. And the results were phenomenal. I mean, the operating temperatures plummeted. There was no further tripping. We haven't calculated the full savings yet, but it's going to be enormous given that it's a refinery, given that an hour of downtime there is pretty expensive, given that they didn't have to drain out all the oil. And then we had similar experience on a certain offshore platform in the North Sea who had similar issues. It was a large screw compressor and again, regularly tripping because of these elevated temperatures, and it was causing havoc on board the platform due to production. And again, same product was added, Decon, and within 24 hours, the temperatures had plummeted and they had months suddenly of no tripping. So again, the operator was thrilled. Again, we're working on putting together a bit of a case study now, but just simply adding this fluid in at 5% transformed the reliability of their operation and prevented any further downtime, which is...
Yeah, that is pretty impressive. I mean, even given the scale in which like this users operate, right? I'm curious now, Angus, like how do you choose the brands that you work with? How do you like vet them? Like,
I think
making products.
Yes, no, exactly. I think, well, it's funny how it's developed over the years. A number of them were introduced to us. Some of them, as is often the case, I think in business is down to relationships. Fluidtech came about because I've known a lot of the senior management for probably 20 years. And in my previous life with lubrication engineers, I came across them. We weren't doing any business, but we had a close working relationship, even though we weren't working together, but from industry events. And it was as simple as, I think, over a beer one night. They said, have you ever thought about representing Fluidtech? And I said, well, actually, come to think of it, I have. And we took it from there. And here we are 5 years later. Similar with Viper. Solnox, again, was through friendship ties. And again, just good timing. So in terms of vetting, we sit down and we look very carefully as to whether we feel each brand will have a synergy with the other solutions we offer. We don't want to have any conflict of interest. And we're also, we are humbled. We are approached regularly by other brands who want to work with us. And we're at the stage where there's no bandwidth. That expression, we literally, as a relatively small organization still, we're focusing on those that we represent already. So we've had to regularly turn down a number of other brands recently just because we know we wouldn't be able to offer them the required amount of commitment and success, really. So I think we're in a good place at the moment, focusing on growing those products that we already have in our range. And, we had a fantastic 2025. We had kind of 40% year-on-year growth, which we were thrilled with. And if we can even do half of that again this year, we'll be very happy. But yeah, it does seem to work really well in terms of the mix. And once we've started with clients, we tend to find that step by step, they then start to introduce our other products, because once we've proven ourselves with the first product and they've seen the savings, they've seen the sustainability impact, they then quickly recognize that we have other solutions that they can also introduce into other parts of their business. So a good example is Solnox, the fuel conditioner. So a lot of our Solnox clients are very happy with the fuel savings they get, the emissions reductions they get in their internal combustion engines. Could be cruise liner, could be diesel locomotives, could be generators. But very often a number of those clients have then heard about another product we represent, which is Oil Spedita 2, which is a bioremediation product to do with cleaning up hydrocarbon spills. Now, those sectors I've just mentioned, most of them tend to have, unfortunately, hydrocarbon spills. Could be a fuel spill in the port. It could be fuel spill or a hydraulic oil, hydraulic hose breaking on the railway line. there's generally hydrocarbons of some sort spilling, and we've found that we've then been able to introduce oil spill to them, and it's been another nice fit. And again, it's organic, biodegradable. It's an eco-friendly product that is going to then also help them control their pollution. So, yeah, it tends to work nicely in that way.
I'm curious now, like, do you have any sort of like intention that like any program that say like if you have a client that uses this certain product, how do they know? Because you mentioned a couple times like, oh, once they know about these other products, how do they often get to know about all the other products that you have? Do you like intentionally let them know, or is it something that mostly happens, by chance? Or yeah, how
Yeah,
does that happen?
we do focus on ensuring they understand our full range of solutions. Certainly, even when we just get started with a new client, we'll very much ensure they're introduced to the full range and on our background, our capabilities, the different services and solutions we offer. And it's the way of the world these days. Once we're working with people, you're connected with them on LinkedIn, and then often that happens. One of our clients will say, "Oh, I've noticed that product you mentioned on LinkedIn last week. That there's definite interest there for us." So yeah, that it tends to work quite organically in that way.
Yeah, I want to ask you a more like high level question now, which is related to AI and automation, which is, an inevitable conversation that businesses are
Yeah.
having nowadays. And in your opinion, are you seeing AI and automation or data tools show up yet in distributor enablement or sales workflows?
We are, and it's certainly one of the main topics in all the different sectors we work with. And example, the lubricants industry. I attended one of their environmental sustainability conferences in London last summer, and some of the main topics at that event, it was a one-day event, was all about AI and how it can assist the industry. I think, like most sectors, we all recognise the power and how much it can help. It's for a lot of companies such as ourselves, it's working out where best to get started and where best to make the most of it. And I know with all the products we represent, there's no doubt AI can be a hugely supportive tool for us. I know when I look at the lubricant sector, one of the big users of it is oil analysis, for example. So some of the organizations like Polaris Laboratories or SGS, some of these big oil analysis, they're global businesses. They're analyzing thousands of samples a week, thousands and thousands. And from many different industries, many different types of lubricants. And this is a great example where AI can really make things a lot more efficient and to spot future trends in performance. And that links into the work we're doing with Fluidtech, as I mentioned, because again, there's a lot of oil analysis that supports our efforts there. So same with Solnox, there's a lot of analysis, a lot of data generally needed when we're evaluating Solnox for clients, whether it's fuel savings, from telemetry equipment. If you're testing Solnox in, I don't know, a fleet of 10 trucks or 10 vessels, huge bulk carriers or tankers, there's going to be a lot of data generated in terms of fuel data, consumption data, emissions data. So I think there's a lot of areas like that where AI is going to be really, really powerful, really useful for us moving forward.
Yeah, it's inevitable nowadays, and it's just a matter of how businesses will implement their current workflows and structure to
Yeah.
try to extract the most value out of it.
I mean,
Is
for example, we've started to use HubSpot as our CRM system, and we're a new marketing company this year, JDR Group, and I know a big part behind HubSpot now is AI, and we're already looking at how we can improve workflows, automate more of our workflows. You mentioned in terms of even searching for new distributors or new clients. There's a lot I think we can do better and more efficiently if we can implement some of this AI. And I know it will be a huge, huge help for a company like A&S.
Most definitely, and with a very robust tool as HubSpot, I have helped other companies implement HubSpot as well with AI, and I can see what it can do. Like even for like opportunities that are being wasted in the pipeline. Like it
Yeah,
can bring more visibility into your pipeline, and you can understand like
yeah,
what opportunity you already have in house that you're not fully leveraging, rather than just having an external focus of like how can I grow more by finding new clients. You can have an internal focus and say, hey, how can we leverage what we already have in house, right? It kind of works
for
both
sure.
ways. Amazing. Yeah. When you look at this process, of like, let's talk a little bit about, the commercial process. Is there any like one processes that you think shouldn't be manual anymore, but still is?
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. I just some of the finance work we have to do. I think there's definitely got to be better ways of, and I'm sure there are. We just have to find them. But I think with some of the repetition of some of the jobs some of our finance guys have to do, there's definitely going to be a quicker and easier way of working some of that. As you just mentioned, pipeline. I think as most of us do on LinkedIn and these kind of social media, we have all these contacts and all these different quotes that might have been sent out, and then more often than not, we're losing track of some of those, and there's got to be a more efficient way working with AI, and as you've just mentioned, in terms of getting closer to that and being more organized and more efficient. So that's a big focus for us this year as a company.
And that will get you to that 40% plus growth again.
Yes, that's the plan. Please,
And
that would be great.
yeah, I wish nothing but that and more for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let me ask you a little bit now, like looking forward, since we start talking about this current year now. What does the next phase of A&S International look like?
Consistent, solid growth. So I think for us as a business, the last few years, one of the main important areas for us has been getting that consistency in terms of consistent sales from not only distributors but direct clients. So I've mentioned our kind of ambitious aims. We know where we want to get to within the next 3 years. It is ambitious, but we really believe it's realistic, given the groundwork that we've done the last 2-3 years, particularly on our kind of core 3 brands: Viper, wire rope lubricator, the Solmox eco fuel conditioner I mentioned, and Fluorotech. We've done a lot of the hard yards in terms of generating the evaluations, producing case studies, building the profile of those brands. And a word I like to use, but it's is momentum. And with those 3 I've just mentioned, there's definite momentum building in terms of the number of inquiries we're receiving, the number of RFQs we're receiving, and then the number of sales and the shortening of sales cycles. And that's particularly true with Solmox, where it's a new brand. We've been there from the beginning, and then suddenly Solmox, they're getting record-breaking quarters all the time now. So word is spreading, the understanding of that particular brand, of the technology, is understood. So it's, for us, it's just about consistent, ambitious growth over the next 3 years. We know where we need to be, and we want that 40% this year, and hopefully the same again the following year, and then we'll see what happens.
I think that is a very attainable goal, Angus.
In terms of, I think particularly with some of those products, I really believe it is because of the growth of understanding and the importance of sustainability. Because particularly with Solmox and Fluorotech, those products, what they offer clients, they're drop-in, they're transitional. There's no real capex needed, and I think for me, it's been really rewarding to see more and more industries and companies identifying the potential of these types of products and starting to embrace them more. And we're being supported by OEMs as well. So Fluorotech, for example, they approved by Siemens Energy, Solar Turbines, GE, MAN, some really big players in the market who have spent a lot of time studying the products. They know they work, and having that kind of support then gives the confidence to the end user in the field. And I'm seeing that more and more. I've mentioned offshore oil and gas already, is a classic one. The power industry, yes, we all want to decarbonize, we want to move away from hydrocarbons, but as I think most of us know in our sector, hydrocarbons are going nowhere, not for decades to come. They're too needed in terms of the large scale operations, the big equipment, the big machinery. But there are ways to still use them, but you can also decarbonize, and 2 brands I've just mentioned can enable customers to really achieve massive CO2 reductions, improvements in reliability, and also save money at the same time. So what's not to like?
Yeah, exactly. We are going to be, habitating like the moon or Mars, and mining and building power plants and things out in the space. How are we gonna get there, right? Is it going to be like an electric bus? Like you said, this is not going anywhere. The real secret here is to learn how to use it in a way that is more in tune with nature and cause less harm.
Exactly that. Yeah,
It cannot be
exactly.
denied or just, like, yeah, it's not going anywhere, just like you said.
Yeah, that's one of the big challenges we've got is communicating that and making people aware that what is possible. And I think that's, again, I found really refreshing and rewarding when you as I've said, more and more companies are suddenly waking up and going, actually, there are these other alternative options that can still allow us to make these important steps towards decarbonisation. And wow, we can also save money at the same time. So it's a win-win.
Win-win. That's where we all want to be.
Yeah, for sure. So no, it's really exciting times.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
As we approach the end of the episode, I like to ask you this question because you've built a highly credible, technically trusted business with A&S International. But if you could have the power of like waving a magic wand and remove one obstacle that is holding you back today, what would that be?
I love that question. Yeah, oh, to have a magic wand. I've mentioned the support of OEMs for one brand, but in some of the other brands, we struggle with objections from OEMs, and I'd love to be able to work more closely with more of the OEMs as partners and not seen as a threat. I do get for a lot of them it's tough because the kind of solutions we're offering, it's not a priority for them, and I do understand that it's not their business. They don't necessarily have the time and money, but that's what we do find from time to time in certain sectors, that's what can be holding us back. And not in all of them, as I said, I give them the Fluidtech example, where it's the complete opposite. The OEMs have been just so supportive and fantastic, and we're seeing the subsequent results. But the threat of warranty claims and things like that, or won't cover the warranty, that I do find that holds us back quite a lot. And so if I had a magic wand, I'd like those to go away.
I love that answer. It's such a technical answer, and it resonates with exactly the
It
niche
would
that.
make my life a lot easier. But anyway, that's part of the challenge of what we do. It's all part of the big picture. There's all these different moving parts, from the customer to, as I say, OEMs to their different suppliers to us providing solutions. So yeah, but again, that's the beauty of it. Again, a lot of it's all down to the people, isn't it? It's the people you're working with. It's making it all happen. So
Yeah. Angus, I would like to thank you so much for your presence here today, for everything that you shared with us. It was a wealth of knowledge, a snapshot into an industry that not many people, many business owners are aware how they operate or how it's structured. So your insights here were very valuable. I appreciate your participation today.
I really appreciate the invite. I've really enjoyed it. I hope the listeners enjoy it as well. But no, thank you so much for the invite. It's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
That brings us to the end of this episode. This podcast is sponsored by Inevitable Flow. Inevitable Flow helps architecture, engineering, and construction firms generate a consistent flow of qualified project leads using AI-powered outbound systems so they can grow revenue without hiring a sales team or relying on unpredictable referrals. If you want to book a free consultation to find out more, click the link in the description of the show. I'll see you next time.